Hi, this is just a brief video on how to go through Unit 2, Section 3 of the Cognitive Tutor online program for Algebra 2. So it says, use the solver to find the inverse of a function. And if you read through the lesson, the inverse of the function is sort of the opposite, or switching x and y. So this first one, again, in the step-by-step, it just says enter the expression for y, which means really what we've been doing in class, where f of x and y are the same thing. What you saw in the first two sections of this unit is that you switched x and y. So all I'm doing is switching x and y. So changing this to y, and then it becomes 5y minus 3. In this next section, or this next box, it wants the inverse. So what it wants you to do is it wants you to solve this for y. And if you need to, you can use the solver. And again, the solver kind of walks you through, whenever you kind of get stuck, the solver walks you through what you can, or how you can solve it. And it'll say, okay, if we're going to solve for y, first I'm going to have to add 3 to both sides. Then if I'm going to solve for y, I'm going to have to divide by 5. And again, you can do this on paper, or you can do it in the solver. But now you can see that to enter in right here, you have to use the fraction button, and you want x plus 3 divided by 5 as your inverse. So now it's saying enter the expression that represents the composition of f of x and the inverse of f of x. So here what you're noticing is the f refers to the original function. This with the little -1 refers to the inverse function. So we're substituting in place of the inverse function. We're just going to substitute in this expression that we just found. So we're literally taking what we just did and just substituting it into a different equation. It says, again, follow what your little helpers tell you. You are given that f of x equals 5x minus 3. To calculate f of x plus 3 divided by 5, substitute this for x into this equation. So what they're saying is okay, here's my original equation. In place of this x, I'm going to have to substitute in. So in place of it, every time I substitute in, I always put the parentheses. I have to substitute in x plus 3 divided by 5. So this is substituted in place of x, and then minus 3. So there was an x, now I substitute in place of x. Now they want you to simplify and enter your results. And again, anytime you're asked to simplify, you can click on this solver, and the first thing they will say is multiply, because you can multiply, and when you multiply, it just becomes one fraction, because this is technically over 1. Then you can simplify your fraction. The 5's cancel. And then you can combine like terms. -3 minus 3 is 0. So now we found that our answer, when you simplify this, is just x. So you close this, and this is just x. Now they're asking you, I'm going to move this out of the way, they're asking you in this next one to do the reverse. Here we were taking our original function and substituting in the inverse. Now we're taking our inverse function and we're substituting in the original. So again, this was my original function, and so what they want me to do is they want me to substitute that in. So again, f of x is 5x minus 3. Now what they want me to do, read what you have, you're given the original function. To calculate the inverse function, substitute this in for x. So again, if I look at my inverse function, it's right here, and in place of that x, I have to put in 5x minus 3. Again, I always think it's helpful to whatever you're substituting in to put in parentheses. Then if I'm looking at my inverse function, it's plus 3, and then it's divided by 5. So in place of this x, I substituted in the original function. Now they want you to simplify. And again, anytime they ask me to simplify, I always hit the solver. It will put your expression here, or you may have to type it in. and it says remove the parentheses, so you have to do that by distributing. Technically, you're distributing just 1 to that, so that's why it didn't change. Then you can combine like terms, and if I put these two together, and if it lets me highlight just the -3 and 3, sometimes it's hard to find out where that actually is. And you have to kind of just scoot around until you get just those, because if I click here, it's going to tell me, oh, it did actually work. And then simplify my fraction. So again, I find out that when I substitute in the original function into the inverse function, it gives me x. When I substitute in the inverse function into the original, it also gives me x. So that's kind of what you're doing in Unit 2, Section 3. Again, you can always refer back to the step-by-step and you can use the hints. If you still get stuck, please ask some questions in class.